Hey everybody, what's happening? Good morning. It is the day after Christmas, and I'm a little slower going. I don't know about all you, if you are too, if you find yourself a little slower going that day after Christmas, but it certainly is for me. And we had a great, nice gathering yesterday, and hopefully you did too. And I read some of Saint Athanasius to my family on the Incarnation. Um, and that was really cool. If you've never read The Incarnation by Saint Athanasius from around 350 or so after the death of Christ, that's when he wrote that book. But super cool on the birth of the Word becoming flesh, if you will. But anyway, very cool. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. Bo, that's my name. You could always check out. Look at this. Oh, yes, it's getting better and better. You can always check out my archives at my YouTube channel, Bo Ouellette. Right there, Ouellettete. 3.5 weeks in after my moto accident, broken scapula, 7 broken ribs, bleeding lung, and healing good. So thankful, totally thankful. It's nice when, your body does heal. It's tough when the body doesn't quite heal well, and we know everybody on the planet knows that at some point our body's not going to heal well, and we all know that. That's all in our minds, whether you want to think about it or not. And it's just, what next? What then? We went over that Psalms 73, 25 and 26. Psalm 73, 25 and 26. I mean, write it down, tattoo it somewhere. I don't know. But what does it say? My heart and flesh may fail, right? My heart and flesh may fail, but you are the strength of my portion forever. Remember what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, even if our God does not save us, we will trust in the Lord, right? Yeah, our heart and flesh may fail. That's right. So anyway, it's good seeing you guys. Hey, I wanted to give just a shout out to Craig. Craig H, man. I love it that he takes his breaks around the morning devotion. So you guys probably were wondering if I was going to do a morning devotion today. It's 26. But, when I get up, it's like I kind of just want to do it, hang out with you guys a little bit, and I find that super fun. So Daniel, we're not doing Daniel 9 today, Paula, right? You kind of caught that, I bet. But we're doing Daniel 10. So let me change that. Ooh, there we go. Daniel 10. So yeah, Daniel 9 was last time. So yep, Paul is on it. Paul is she knows. Daniel 10. So let's read this. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Cyrus of Persia. Okay, so remember the Medo-Persian Empire conquered Babylon. It says, Daniel, also known as Belshazzar, had another vision. He understood the vision concerning events certain to happen in the future. Okay, so we have 8, 9, and 10 are definitely future. And even though they are about Israel, particularly contextually about Israel, we see that it not only is dealing with, well, let me say this. It seems to be really dealing with Israel on these latter days, future days. And what Daniel's getting is, Daniel just wants to know if they're ever going to get back to Israel, like the land of Israel. But he's getting much more. God is revealing to him what's going to happen in Israel's future, as in for a long time. And it's destruction, conflict, oppression, on epic levels, where the temple will always be either kind of on the verge of being destroyed. There'll be things like that. Like they'll always be in this kind of turmoil, and there'll be rulers that will be very against the place of the temple, and blaspheme God and all this stuff. So he's getting a lot of these visions, man, and it's pretty intense. But they're very specific. And Daniel doesn't quite know how to take it all, meaning he's not understanding everything this is going to happen and then this is going to happen. He's not like that. He's kind of like, whoa, I don't quite grab that. And they've even made him very, I don't know if the word is depressed, but kind of sick to his stomach. So it says he understood that the vision concerning events certain to happen in the future, times of war and great hardship. Okay, so I'm not making it up. It's just what it says, right? And it says, and when the vision came to me, I, Daniel, had been in mourning for 3 whole weeks. So he's been bummed. Maybe this is immediately after the last one, where he's just been down and out at the job, but really suffering from that melancholy. And it says, I, Daniel, it says he's been mourning for 3 weeks, and all that time I had eaten no rich food, no meat or wine crossed my lips, and I urged no fragrant lotions until those 3 weeks had passed. So it sounds like he really kind of was in that depression, right? Where you kind of just don't touch food much. And you're really just kind of focused. I don't know if you've ever been there before. I'm sure you have. We all have gone through a lot of emotions as human beings. And we're just going to have to let people kind of go through what they go through. We can't manipulate them to try to fix them. We can't try to make people be like us. People are going to have to go through what they're going to have to go through. And I know that's the hard thing for me too. I tend to be a very friendly guy, kind of a very positive guy too. And I tend to want everybody to be like me. And I tend to think that that's like the best quality, to be positive and, always optimistic. And that's because that's the way I am. I want to think that that's like, okay, because that is the way my temperament naturally is. But if I go to someone whose temperament's not like that they tend to be more on the melancholy side again, I can really frustrate them by trying to kind of manipulate them or coerce them or get them to be like me. And I really got to watch that. I think that's a big kind of area of my life where I'm just always kind of thinking like, I don't know if I do a great job of that. I think I tend to always want people to be more like me, and I tend to see them through that lens. It's unfortunate. We have to let people be people. Daniel was Daniel, and Daniel was going through a hard time, and you're going to have to let Daniel go through it, right? And he says, on April 23rd, I was standing on the bank of the great Tigris River, and I looked up and saw a man dressed in linen clothing with a belt of pure gold around his waist. So he had this belt. I wonder if it had like a cool belt buckle. No, I don't know. I always love like people with belts. I saw someone the other day, they came over the house and they had a cowboy belt. I'm trying to think who it was, but I mean a belt buckle, and it was super cool. It was kind of one of those bigger ones, I remember getting my first belt buckle, and it was of the band Kiss. I don't know if you remember the band Kiss, but that was my first belt buckle, was the band Kiss, man. All 4 members on it. And boy, was I stoked, man. I was, 4th grade? And I thought I hit the lottery. And it was like at a carny. It was like a carnival, I think I was at a carnival and I won this thing. And it was, oh man, it was the best. Or someone, I don't know. I don't know how I got it actually. But boy, man. Anyway, he had a gold belt around him, right? And he says his body looked like a precious gem. His face flashed like lightning, and his eyes flamed like torches. His arms and feet shone like polished bronze, and his voice roared like the vast multitude of people. Paula says, I remember those days. Totally. Don't we all remember those days where we had the cool Kiss belt buckle? But here you have a incredible revelation. Okay, and I want to call it a revelation because in the book of Revelation, you have another very similar description of a person. So we see that Daniel a lot of times gets visions of a book of the Bible that we have, the book of Revelation. And so it's interesting that if you study the book of Revelation and you don't know Daniel, it ain't going to work. Meaning you're going to miss stuff a lot. But if you know the book of Daniel and you study the book of Revelation, you're going to go, oh. The revelation of Jesus Christ, the last book of the Bible, is the revealing, the opening up of what Daniel saw. A lot of what Daniel saw in visions. It's Jesus revealing how it's all going to come down. Why? Because Daniel wondered what it all meant. What was it all about? Man, what's this all about? Well, Jesus is going to give him an answer. And it's called the Book of Revelation. I don't know if you knew that. But anyway, hopefully you do now. Okay? So Daniel 10, you can go to Revelation chapter 1, and I think read that chapter, Revelation chapter 1, and you're going to get a vision of someone and compare them. Look at them. Look at the two people. I mean, it sounds kind of, similar, don't you think? It's very parallel. Okay, so Daniel has this incredible vision of a person. Notice it says that he was what? Standing on the bank of the great river. And he sees a man dressed in linen. So this is a person with a body and legs and everything like that. Now it says, only I, Daniel, saw this vision. The men with me saw nothing, but they were suddenly terrified and ran away to hide. That sounds very similar to a passage in the book of Acts, too, with a guy named Paul, what we call the apostle, who is knocked off, right, the animal and blinded, and this, he saw this amazing thing, this light, this appearance, and it absolutely rocked his world. And Daniel here sees this, and it says, the men with him saw nothing, but they were suddenly terrified and ran away to hide. So I was left there all alone to see this amazing vision. My strength left me, my face grew deathly pale, and I felt very weak. Then I heard the man speak, and when I heard the sound of the voice, I fainted and lay there with my face to the ground. Okay, so when Daniel sees this vision of this immense brightness and just this mighty kind of thundering sound, voice of the multitudes, he doesn't go like, oh man, God's on the scene, and boy, this is going to be great, and I saw God in my living room, and boy, that was amazing. It's not like back in the 80s with, Bhagwash Rajneesh up in, Oregon, doing his cult up there, his Indian cult, guru thing, where it's like, I am the mystic, come to me, I am the Jesus, I am the God, or Shirley MacLaine hanging out on the beach screaming, I am God. This isn't it. I imagine if God is really God and God is real, and this is coming from a guy who was an atheist, secular, progressive guy growing up in Southern California. If there's a God, really a God, I would imagine that if there's any a sign of God on the planet, it's going to be fairly radical. Meaning there's going to be something radical that follows. Jesus says, hey, can't you believe just what I'm doing? Don't you see what I'm doing? The blind see, the deaf hear, the mute talk, the cripple walk. I mean, that's what I expect, right? If it's the deity, something radical. And, and sure enough, even Yahweh in the book of Isaiah says, yeah, if the things you worship, all these wooden idols and idols of stone and stuff like that, if they're really God, what do? What's radical about them? They don't have a mouth. They don't talk. They don't have ears. I don't think they hear. That's how Yahweh argues in the book of Isaiah to people who are worshiping God, meaning God is not into just people worshiping gods or a God. No, he's into the true and living God that has evidence. There's something radical, and Daniel feels it. He's sick, he's not feeling well, and he's scared. And here we go. It says, he said, don't be afraid, Daniel, since the first day you began to pray for understanding and humble yourself before your God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come to answer to your prayers. So it's interesting. it says, then he was touched, right? And then you hear this voice, don't be afraid. Boy, what words for us, right? Don't be afraid. Have you ever taken out a piece of paper and just write out fear? And just write out people's names? Your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your mom, your dad. And you just talked about what you fear with those specific people. I guarantee if you really get honest, man, you're going to have a little bit of a list. And you'll be blown away of just how much fear is in you. And really probably why you're saying what you say when you talk to that specific person. It's because there's a lot of ways that us humans are motivated. But one of the main ways I should say, is fear. Security, there's other ways too. But fear rules the world. This is what Jesus has come to do, by the way, right? To help us who have feared death, it says in the book of Hebrews, in the New Testament. It says that we as human beings have always feared death. And Jesus has come to conquer death, to remove our fear of it. So death is no longer the end, but it becomes what? The beginning. That's right. Jesus, God, comes into a body to snuff out, blot out death, to change the very nature of it. So it's no longer that separation from the deity, the end, but it is now the beginning. So now death to the Christian is a birth pain, right? The bodily death is a birth pain into life, right? Our momentary affliction. It's all it is, Romans chapter 8. It's a momentary affliction, the time of our departure, right? It's not worthy to be compared to that glory which shall be revealed in us. Man, very cool. That's Romans chapter 8. But so don't be afraid, it says, right? And then it says something really interesting. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come to answer to your prayer. I have come in answer to your prayer, but for 21 days the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me, and I left him there with the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. Now I am here to explain what will happen to your people in the future. That's Israel. And it says, for this vision concerns a time yet to come. Okay. Very interesting. I don't know if you guys have ever known this, but it seems like that when Daniel prayed, that there was a lot of movement in the world that we don't see. And what a trip. I mean, this is kind of one of those passages that it's very Twilight Zone-y. I mean, it's Rod Serling time. It's Twilight Zone time, right? New Year's. The all 24-hour, what is it, like weekend Twilight Zone marathon from the, late 50s or 60s, early 60s, the TV show, The Twilight Zone. But I remember that music at the beginning, the dee-nee-nee-nee-nee-nee-nee-nee-nee-nee, that kind of thing. You're traveling in a galaxy far, that kind of thing. You're traveling in another dimension, not only of sight and sound, but of mind, right? A journey into a wondrous land, right? And it's like, that's where we're going. Daniel prays, an angel comes out to him and is stopped by another spiritual being who's headed up Persia. Isn't that weird? The empire of Persia has this spiritual being somehow hanging out with it, and Michael the archangel is called, who seems to be a strong dude and who comes to the rescue of this other messenger who's going to Daniel to ward off. Michael's come to ward off the spirit prince of Persia so that this messenger can get to Daniel and give the word over to Daniel. So That's what it just said. And wow. I mean, that's pretty interesting, you know. And I don't know if we really have a very kind of cognitive, meaning are we really aware of kind of the spiritual world like that? You know, it's kind of interesting when you read the New Testament, and not only the Gospels, but you read like the book of Ephesians. Ephesians is a great one. I think it's somewhere like in Ephesians chapter 3 maybe, that breaks down this whole Jesus conquering dominions and powers and all this stuff like that. And you're kind of like going, whoa, like what are we talking about here? Where Jesus' work on the cross and in the resurrection declared salvation. It wasn't only a proclamation of salvation for us, but it was also a proclamation of salvation for all of creation, of everything that has ever been created, ever, anywhere. Whether it's those that dwell in the heavenlies, in the spirit world, or those that dwell in the place of the dead. We get that in the book of Peter, if I remember, that he goes to proclaim, to speak to those in prison. I mean, it's very interesting when you study the New Testament of just the proclamation of the good news and to who it reached. And I don't think we understand just the incredible radicalness of our salvation. That when you are saved, it says the angels, the spirit world, if you will, right? The angels rejoice over one sinner that repents. I mean, Jesus again unveils, right? Opens up a spiritual world to us. You mean when I came to Christ, there was a literal party going on in the spiritual realm with the heavenly host. I mean, that is so amazing to hear. So, and there's battles taking place. Ephesians, not only chapter 3, but chapter 6 in the New Testament. So Ephesians chapter 3 and chapter 6, very interesting. Chapter 6, of course, is the famous Armor of God passage, which is actually a kind of a breakdown of another passage in the book of Isaiah, actually. But it's even more in depth in Ephesians chapter 6. But it talks about us battling not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and everything like that in these places. And so, I mean, it's kind of a mind blower for sure. But for a heavy metal kid like me, growing up in Southern California, a kid who is into a ton of metal music and, you know, the metal covers and the metal posters and all that stuff like that, dude, I get it. It's like, I knew that even when I was an atheist growing up as a kid, as a progressive kid. You know, I knew there was something out there, man. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't articulate it. I didn't know anything about the Bible at all. But man, dude, my heavy metal culture was riddled with angels and demons and battles and spiritual stuff and, man, everything like that. And it made me just totally think, even as a progressive, secular guy growing up, that there's got to be more. There's got to be a lot going on that's moving kingdoms and empires and nations and people, because we are lost, man. We are unbelievably lost. We are so lost we can't even see our lostness. We are so filled with pride, it won't even let us look at our pride. Man, we are beyond, right? And that's what the Bible teaches. There's no one good, no one right, no, not one. Each has gone their own way. Man, so I really got kind of, the pump was primed, meaning in my heart, to read the Bible just through all the culture, the music culture that I was around, all that spirit stuff, you know, really kind of freaked me out and made me go, man, dude, what's going on with angels and demons? And man, I remember the band Grim Reaper. I mean, that's really going back a ways, and that's really kind of, that's kind of those obscure metal bands back in the days. But, Grim Reaper, it's like, whoa, dude, like Angel of Death? What's that all about? Stuff like that. The whole point is that I find it fascinating that it's true and that your life is being watched and it is being, in a sense, people are, there's beings that are blown away by you and I and our relationship with Jesus. And it moves the mountains. Man, it moves the mountains. You have faith of a mustard seed. You can what? Move the mountains. That's right. You can move those people, move those governments, move things. And man, wow, what an eye-opener. Yeah, when I trust in Jesus, I am trusting in the most powerful being on the planet. I say on the planet, but I say that really facetiously, right? I mean, I am trusting the deity, the greatest, who can do all things, who creates all things. And people and beings are moved by Jesus. They are, in a sense, blown away. And so there is a war, even in the spiritual realm, kind of a battle that takes place. And we participate in that, in this salvation we have received by Jesus. Wow. I know that's a little bit of a Bible study there, but I just find that so fascinating and so encouraging, actually, that, you might think, oh man, my life don't matter. You will not believe kind of the power that we can yield in Christ. And we're not the powerful ones. We're not the wizards. It's Jesus in us, the hope of glory. Yeah, that's what Colossians says. Jesus in you. So it's Jesus in you that's all about. We've been sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 13. Anyway, cool. Anyway, while he was speaking to me, I looked down at the ground, unable to say a word, and then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. And I said to the one standing in front of me, I am filled with anguish because of the vision I have seen. My Lord, I am very weak. How can someone like me, your servant, talk to you, my Lord? My strength is gone. I can hardly breathe. Then one who looked like a man touched me again, and I felt strength returning. Don't be afraid, he said, for you are very precious to God. Peace, be encouraged, be strong. Hey, Daniel, when he draws close to God, it's powerful. And there's a lot of emotion. And there's a lot of wondering. And there's a lot of that. Don't think that when we draw close to God, there's not going to be a lot of just what Daniel goes through, a lot of that emotion, a lot of that wow, a lot of that awe, and that awe hits us in different ways. And so not everybody's going to be the same. Not everybody's going to draw close to God. And today Daniel might be put down in a church. People in a church might say, "Oh, Daniel, you know what? You shouldn't be so sad. God loves you. You shouldn't be so sad." But thing is Daniel was touched by God. It was an emotional thing for him. And don't you love that the message is, hey, dude, you are precious by God. You are very precious. Don't be afraid. Why? Because Daniel was afraid. There's no doubt when Jesus drew close to Peter, the apostle, what does Peter say? He says, "Go away from me, Lord. Go away. For I am a person of unclean lips," man. A man with many problems. And that's probably the proper response. If Jesus comes to you and you're like, "Oh man, Jesus, how's it going? Great. Hey, let's go have a drink, and hang out." I'm wondering if that's Jesus. Because it seems like when people see Jesus, an angel, the Lord, different things like that. It's pretty radical. And it's pretty emotional. And I got to think that I would just break down and bawl and cry and be just so blown away and in awe of his grace, his love. And man, what precious words would you want to hear than precious, you're precious before God. Be encouraged. Be strong. I'm with you. Wow. Sounds like what God says to Joshua. Be strong, be of good courage, right? For the Lord thy God is with thee. And as he spoke these words to me, I suddenly felt stronger and said to him, and this is certainly a Jesus moment in the Old Testament once again. So when I say God, I could say Jesus. And it says, please speak to me, O Lord, my Lord, for you have strengthened me. Isn't that great? You strengthened me. I'm ready to hear from you. Oh, there's times where we just need to be touched by God, and then he touches us, right? And then we're ready to hear. He replied, do you know why I have come? Soon I must return to fight against the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia, and after that the spirit prince of the kingdom of Greece will come. Meanwhile, I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one helps me against these spirit princes except Michael, your spirit prince. I have been standing beside Michael to support and strengthen him since the first year of the reign of Darius the Mede. Unbelievable. Wild passage, right? And notice the messenger says, hey, I got to go back and do some brawling. Michael's going to be there with me. But it seems like, and I want you to get this just contextually, it seems like that what is happening in these visions is that there's the visions of the empires that are going to be impacting Israel in the future, all the way up to the end. But there's also an opening, a revealing of the spiritual battle that is taking place between the empires that battle Israel, if that makes sense. There is an unveiling that there is a spiritual connection. There's something in the unseen world that also goes on when these empires are coming after Israel and taking it over and conquering its people, Daniel's people, what's called the holy people. They're separated to God, right? So there's a lot going on. So we shouldn't be surprised when we get to the book of Revelation that there is a revealing of not only what's going on in the physical world at the end when it comes to the Jewish people and Jerusalem and all that, but also what's going on in the spiritual world with the battles that are going on. And so there is an interesting two things going on in the book of Revelation. There's the physical stuff on the planet, and then there's this spiritual opening up as well. And so you see a little bit of that in Daniel. You see the messengers talk about the battle of these spirit princes with the Persian Empire, and then the Grecian Empire is going to come on the scene soon. So that's mentioned as well. And so you really see that the context, again, is Israel, Jerusalem, the temple, and those are the big things. And now when we get into the book of Revelation, from chapter 5 on, or chapter 4 on, we get what? Just Israel, Jerusalem, and what was the other thing? The temple area. And those become kind of the focus. And this empire, right? And the spiritual dimension of this empire. So we can see how this is all flowing. Anyway, very cool. Very, very, very cool. Akeem says, true divine encounter is always a humbling experience. It's a great way to say it. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we kind of have to question if someone's not humbled at all by an encounter with the living God or a messenger, right? Seems like it would be quite humbling for sure. It definitely would get you sober, meaning you'd be really, really alert. Keem also says, thanks be to God for the salvation and victory we have found in Jesus. Amen. So true. So, it's a good chapter. There's a lot of, again, technical things in the book of Daniel, and you can study it for a long period of time. And it also helps us understand other books. It was a book quoted by Jesus. Jesus quotes Daniel chapter 9 in Matthew chapter 24. So when you read Matthew 24, Jesus says, as Daniel the prophet spoke, and he quotes Daniel chapter 9. So obviously Jesus believed that Daniel wrote the book of Daniel. So if someone ever argues against it, just say, well, Jesus believed it, and are you smarter than Jesus? And then let them talk. And sometimes people's arrogance will come out. But anyway, have a great 26th. Hope you guys are jamming. And we'll just continue to keep pressing on. We'll finish Daniel soon, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.